Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for update 89 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we've got a bit of a triple feature of an update for you. So let's dive right in. The first thing, any of you who are watching me stream, basically like last week, or have seen on my Twitter, that we have a new experimental feature, flagrantly stolen from Half-Life Alyx, which is physics gravity grabbing. Basically, you can see I can point a controller at one of these objects here and sort of select it. I can then hold the trigger down. That turns orange, and then flick my wrist back to fling the object at myself. Whee! Wonderful. Super convenient for those of you like me who like to play VR sitting and just grab things at a distance lazily. This is disabled by default. I will show you where to enable it under Input and Control Options, Experimental, Half-Life Alyx style, Grabbity Physics Grab. It will be disabled by default, so you won't get that selection sphere. If you're not seeing it, you need to open this panel up and hit Enabled there to get it. This is still work in progress. It needs a lot of tuning. My object selection is not as good as it could be, especially when there's like a complex situation, like a bunch of small objects near each other on a table. It doesn't grab things really consistently, so I'm actually going to rewrite the object selection system from scratch. I've got a better way to approach it. But I wanted to put this in work in progress as it is now. You'll also notice that when you pull an object towards your hand, it will sort of slow down, momentarily hover. I'm going to make this tunable because some people are going to find this annoying, whereas others will make it easier to grab. So I'm going to, in the next rev of this, I'm going to make it so you can actually tune a bunch of things about how this works. Wonderful. So let's get you out of the way. Ha! What else do we have? Well, we have got a replacement for a version of weapon that I've always loved, but I never loved the model of it that I had for H3, along with the original version, and that is our AUG rifles. We've got a replacement for the A3 and a brand new A1. Let's take a look at it. Wham. Pull that in there, spawn lock that, pop a mag in. So our A1 here doesn't have any pick rails, but it has this really wonderful, I believe this is like a 1.5x integrated scope with just like really clean reticle. Wonderful. I just love that. Love it. Obviously has the charging handle that you can lock up, back, and flick down. Dual stage trigger, so you start to pull the trigger and you get your first shot, and if you pull it the rest of the way, fire full auto. And then let's look at our A3 here. Obviously the mags are cross compatible, and this one obviously doesn't have a foregrip, so we want to customize this a little bit. Let's tactical this out real quick. Grab ourselves, you get out of there. Put a little handle on there. Get ourselves a red dot. Maybe a suppressor. Nope, that's a shroud. Always mix those up. There we go. That's looking fancy. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So there you have it. There is our new AUGs. Let's jump over to the Proving Ground scene now and take a look at the third thing that has come in this update. So, over in the Proving Ground, along with all of the sort of realistic features and the sandbox stuff that I mentioned before, that I'm going to start sort of showing off in the devlog as I work on it next week. I've been working with our TF2 community creator, Pi Savvy, on some more gadgets and alternate ammos and alternate equipments for the Meat Fortress class. For those of you who don't know why that continues to be expanded past the stuff that's already in, I would really like to eventually make a really fun take and hold character based around it. But with only the sort of weapon arrangement of the primary classes, it's a little thin and a little tactically flat. And so what I'm slowly doing is adding in a grenade for every class, alternate ammos for each of their weapons, as well as some fun alternate weapons that riff off or change the battlefield role of their existing stock guns. So let's first get a few volunteers. Maybe a soldier and I don't know, maybe an engineer. Wonderful. So this week we've got some new kit for the sniper. So let's check it out. It's actually a whole bunch of stuff. We first got a new alternate SMG, and this is called the Bush Ranger's Boon. Just check that out. It's got a folding stock on it, a heat shield on here, as well as a nice floppy bit. The way this, the concept behind the way this works is that the sniper's SMG in TF2 is a backup weapon. It's a secondary. It doesn't have a stock, which makes it it's a slow-firing SMG that is decent in a pinch, but it's really not, it's not something you can really lean on as a primary sort of midfielder weapon. And as I've mentioned in the past, TF2 in its design sort of intentionally lacks midfield weapons. There are short-range weapons and there are super long-range weapons. And so to make things work and take and hold in H3's context, I'm playing around with sort of altering some of them to be more in that role. So what this basically is a faster firing version of the SMG.
Check mustard.
With a drum mag that makes it a really good sort of midfield weapon, but because of the faster fire rate, this is not something you can sort of one-hand in a pinch. You'll notice that it's quite uncontrollable. It just flies around all over the place. And to go with it, we've got some custom ammo to further switch up and play around with how this can be used. Once again, because of the fact that the TF2 is this sort of cartoon logic context, I'm sort of using this as an opportunity to play around with like what ammunition can be in a more sort of fictional or cartoony context. So we've got an ammo here called Bushfire, which is an incendiary ammo that also releases a puff of smoke with each hit. So if let's get ourselves some more volunteers. So in addition to being useful for setting targets alight, you will end up obscuring the area that you're firing at. So you can both use it within the context of doing damage, or even in an emergency. Actually, put the wrong ammo in there. There we go. Use it to smoke yourself out, smoke out a door, etc. So yeah, just an experiment to see if that ends up being, I don't know, meaningful in a gameplay standpoint. And then the other ammo is something called Funnel Spider. This is actually in certain ways more useful in the other SMG because it's designed more of sort of an emergency defensive weapon, which this is a sort of slow-moving, shorter range flechette buckshot. As you can see,
Texas nights. And my mechanical horses, of course.
So, as you can see, doesn't fire very fast. It doesn't have that much muzzle energy speed-wise, but it's high mass and is super useful if you are panic firing and don't want to need to aim.
Trying to listen to pragmatic response to, yeah, that stings.
So there you go. So there's the alternates for Funnel Spider. What else do we got for the sniper? Let's clear our volunteers out. Let's get a few more here. And just for fun. Boop. So we have got, let's do the grenade next. We have, because I'm slowly adding a grenade for each class. This is the snipers, and what this is sort of a flash grenade version of the number 69 grenade, in that it's a flash, which pops open like this when we pull the pin out of, but instead of detonating with a fuse, it detonates directly on impact. Haha, wonderful. Oh, missed it. Fun stuff. Also, let's see, let's run over here and get our ammo. We've also got some new stuff here for the sniper rifle. Or rather, new ammo and some new sniper rifles. First off, we have the Snag Sanger, which is Aussie for sausage sandwich. It is a scopeless, shorter carbine version of the sniper rifle. It still has its laser, but in addition to this, it has a very small integrated magazine. So you can, in fact, load 2+1 into this sniper rifle.
Pathfinding is broken.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let's take a look at what fun new ammos we have for the sniper rifle. Well, the first one we've got, mate, is Bobby. I'm so sorry for that accent.
Liza, it stings so good.
Which is our explosive
Ouch, I like
incendiary.
I like it. Oh, delightful.
We've got
Liza, it stings so good.
We've got Drongo, which is sort of you could call this Girardi in a bullet. It does it makes the enemy both more vulnerable to hits in a radius and nerfs their damage for a short period of time. So it doesn't do anything else to them. These aren't active, so you're not actually seeing the debuff arrows under them. But it just trust me that it works. And then the last is called Gobsmacker, which is sort of a radius concussion round. For those situations where if you're dealing with essentially a mob, but you've got yourself a single-shot weapon like this, you can either be effective or get yourself out of harm's way. Whap. And to go with this one last wonderful alt weapon, for which I know a bunch of you love Obrez's, is the last bit. TF2 Sniper Obrez, which will fit in a smaller quick belt slot. So this does actually mean this ends up being useful as a sort of utility backup weapon, especially with one of these more unusual rounds ready to go. Whap.
Probably I would pay good money for this.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoy playing around with these. As I said, this is a preview of what of things along the lines that I'd like to add to every one of the classes. Interesting alternate ammunition types, cool grenades that fit, and at least one fun sort of alternate concept weapon that switches up the battlefield role or allows you to play that class a little differently. Whap.
Oh, bloody hell.
So let's jump out of VR and talk about what else is coming in the coming weeks. Yo! So out of VR, what else is in this update, I added some 10 and 20 round mags for the AKM and the AK-74 platform weapons. I didn't get them into the item spawner yet. It wasn't until I literally looked over at my changelog for filming this, so I went, oh crap, I didn't do them. So they will show up in Take and Hold, but that's it for now. I will get them in the item spawner later, though. I had to change the way chamber collision worked with the Martini Henry. Apparently, the folks who didn't realize it was a one-shot weapon would load a single shot in, and then they would attempt to load a second one in, and it would crash the game reliably. I have no idea why it does this, other than I have a dynamic collider on the sort of loading ramp. I've had to make that non-dynamic to prevent this crash from happening. I tried to work around it. I have no idea what PhysX's problem is. So, just to let you know. In addition to that, I finally fixed the incorrect beta symbols used on the Meat Fortress Heavy and Demo. I fixed the magazine dimensions on the AS Val and the VSS Vintorez so that they are actually the proper thickness, as well as fixing their fire selector angles on those weapons. Let's see, the Super Shorty Tactical now spawns with a Picatinny sight. Fixed a visual gap in the hammerless 520s. Fire particles will now correctly ignite fuses. So if you create like a pile of Roman candles and hit it with the flamethrower, it should ignite them. And plugged some geoholes on a couple guns. So beyond that, what is coming up? Well, the first thing is I do want to mention that I'm probably going to switch back to a release every other week instead of every week schedule. I'm still going to do a devlog and show off what I'm working on every week, but just it's something that I noticed from taking the little breaks that I have, that I've gotten so much more done being able to not have to worry about actually getting a functional, bug-tested, packaged up release out every week, especially as the complexity of the project has grown and the number of scenes and the number of assets in the asset bundles. It is taking longer and longer for me to do a build cycle. What used to be a 45-minute process has now become like 3 hours. And that's if I don't mess anything up. If I screw something up in that packaging process, I have to start that like 3-hour process pretty much over from scratch after figuring out what I messed up. It's one of the, I've noticed more and more that I'm basically hitting my release window on Friday just in time. And I was like, I need to change something about the way I'm doing this. It's too stressful and I'm burning too much time that I could be spending working on new content and features. So yeah, so you should not expect a new build to play every Friday. It will be every other. So there's going to be one this week. Next week, I'm going to be showing off some feature preview stuff in the devlog and such, but there won't be a new build. And then the week after that will probably be Alpha 1 of Update 90. And what Update 90 is going to be about is about sandbox range stuff. I'm going to start with the indoor range. We're giving a huge facelift to the paper target. I've got some really exciting stuff to show you folks. And we're going to be slowly integrating those things in. And then once the indoor range has gotten the facelift and the sort of target upgrade that I want, we're going to be moving on to sort of shared sandbox systems. So taking all of the targets that are in the game and sort of bringing them under a more sort of unified model, making them spawnable in the item spawner, making them all work a little more consistently with each other, replacing some of the bad old sound effects on some of them. Yeah, and just but focusing on some other stuff involving sandbox play that I'm not going to spoil yet, but I think you folks are really going to love. So that is what is going to be up for probably the next, that's going to be the big focus, probably for the next month or two of H3 is new toys, new sandbox stuff, and giving some love to some scenes that desperately need it. So, anywho, hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Try not to go absolutely batty while you're in quarantine. Peace.